Welcome to Shoot the Ones, weekly mixed martial arts podcast. I am Dema.
And I'm Genya. This week we'll be discussing Saturday's card at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, UFC 209 Woodley vs. Thompson 2, and going over UFC Fight Night 106 Belfort vs. Gastelum. But first we will go over some MMA news and Bellator 174 that happened on Friday.
Cool. Real quick, you can always catch us on SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, and iTunes. Also, MMApodcast.com. So, real quick, let's start off with the news. As always, we wrote down some bullets, and we'll go over those. Kind of interject a little bit of what happened this Saturday as we are going along, and then we'll do a more in-depth breakdown of exactly what happened as far as UFC 209 and some Bellator.
Thanks for joining us again this week. And the biggest news of this MMA week was GSP Bisping was announced. They don't have an exact arena or fight card that it's on. They did have a press conference, but they did say they were aiming for July, Dema.
A middleweight championship fight, first middleweight bout for GSP. His first comeback fight, hasn't fought in 3 years. Wow, what do you make of this?
Well, it brings up a lot of talking points because, like you said, he hasn't fought in 3 years, but he jumped the line to get the championship fight. But at the same time, GSP is the greatest welterweight in UFC history. So sometimes you have to make exceptions, and this fight's going to generate a couple more $1 million than Bisping versus Romero. So we understand it from Bisping's perspective also, and WIMG, why they wanted to make this fight. However, it also brings up the talking point of it is pushing away from the competitive nature that the sport is supposed to be. Do you know what I mean, Dima?
Yeah, man, it really sucks. A lot of people are getting screwed over. Obviously, Yoel Romero being one. I think Jacare Souza being the other one. Yeah, this is totally a money fight. This is number one reason why this is happening.
Are you excited about it?
As a fight fan, I'm excited about just any fight. This is, as far as fight and fight alone, politics aside, the fight is interesting itself. Bisping poses few interesting challenges for GSP. One of them being his size, I think. His defensive wrestling might also be something to look out for.
I agree. Those are both aspects that GSP has to face. You do have to take into account GSP has faced those kind of fighters at welterweight with the same skill sets, but I do think that Bisping does impose, along with what you just said, along with his his grit and what did you say again? Remind me. You said size too, right?
I said size and his wrestling defense.
Well, that's kind of what I was gonna get at. Yeah, that the size is gonna be a difference. And Bisping, along with what you said, he's really good at getting up off the ground. So even if GSP does use a lot of energy and get him down to the ground, he's probably not going to eat a lot of punishment there. He knows how to get up off the ground. And a lot of people are giving Bisping a lot of flack about fighting Romero. And I don't know, if I was going to work, and they told me, like, hey, you could have an easier day at work and earn twice the money, would you not do this?
Well, yeah, this fight makes a lot of sense for both the competitors in question. This is the biggest payday for both of them. Also, risk-wise, probably the least dangerous fight for GSP in the middleweight division. Probably less dangerous than, one would say Tyron Woodley. So, for his comeback fight, this makes sense for him. As far as Michael Bisping, he always campaigned for a big money fight. So, for those parties in play, this is actually very beneficial. It's those other legit contenders in the weight division kind of getting screwed over that's a big issue here.
I agree with that issue. I mean, and like if I was Yoel or his camp, I would understandably be upset. That the fight's not going to happen, but at the same time, the everybody else is it's not really at fault. But also that to switching kind of gears here a little bit, Dima. They did do like a little press conference. I'm not sure if you caught most of it, but
I've seen a few tidbits.
okay. It was really interesting. They decided to get these guys right in front of a mic right away. And the major question, and you've probably agreed with the tidbits that you've seen, the major question was what is GSP gonna do after this fight? Win, lose, draw, what are his future plans?
He has options, but I think somewhere down the line, because he's making this, he's experimenting with middleweight division. I think they have an Anderson fight down the road in mind.
Yeah, it looked like they were maybe shooting for that. I was more or less thinking maybe aiming for a Conor McGregor angle.
That's another option.
But definitely something with money. But like the funny thing about the press conference is like you could tell George did not really want to talk about that. Bisbing showed up a little bit late, going for the Conor McGregor shit talk angles, talking a lot of trash about GSP being small, but maybe like 10 minutes later switching it up, talking about he really respects GSP, but he did have a lot. Michael Bisping's one of my favorite guys on the mic, but GSP, he kind of avoided those questions, and it was kind of funny. He's like, MMA is like a stock. It's like a stock exchange. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. You're looking for the guys with the high stock, not the ones with the low stock. And that was his primary answer to what he's gonna do. And like a funny tidbit from the interview, or not the interview, from the press conference, like three reporters had basically asked GSP that question. He avoided it. And Ariel Hawani, I guess he felt because he was, top guy in the room, got an ovation, he had to ask the same question with different wording. What did you get out of the press conference? Did you find any relevance towards the fight?
I found it entertaining. GSP was trying to talk a little bit of trash, considering he never does talk trash unless he really doesn't like his opponent, kind of like Nick Diaz. Other than that, they're trying to hype the fight.
I agree. That was an interesting part. You don't see GSP get frazzled too much. And another thing I found interesting is GSP's obviously been training this whole time. I don't think he was just saying it to like, make people like, doubt him less or whatever, because I don't think GSP really cares. And he's always had kind of like a plan in his head for the way that his career is going to go. I'm excited about the fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight, and that makes me even more excited.
I want to kind of dial it back to the actual fight and the tactics they will use. Size being an advantage here. Who do you think has a better striking? Should GSP's wrestling ability get neglected or kind of nullified here?
I think Bisbing is the more polished striker, to be honest with you. But I do think George presents a lot of. Bisbing was kind of saying in the press conference, he's like, "I'm a fighter. You're an athlete," and that did have some relevance because it kind of the striking style is similar to that. Bisbing wants to get in there and exchange and throw accurate technical strikes at you. GSP is more of a movement guy, get the shot when you can. And I have a good feeling he's going to take Bisbing down a number of times in this fight. And Bisbing, I mean, not Bisbing, excuse me. GSP has beat some really good fighters and guys that he shouldn't have been able to take down. His wrestling is even better than like top notch collegiate wrestlers.
I'm excited about his fight. I do want to point out GSP trains with Freddie Roach, one of the best boxing coaches, and his improvement in wrestling has, not wrestling, I'm sorry, boxing, has just leaps and bounds gone gone up through his years, through the years.
Even it's interesting you bring up Freddie Roach. You know he helped get the deal done.
Yeah, I heard it.
Just an interesting thing, and I heard he'll kind of be in GSP's corner, but surprising that that's what it took to get it done. But I'm glad GSP is back in the UFC, and I am disappointed because I wanted to see Yoel fight Bisbing in the middleweight division to move on because it's a great division. Like another one of our news angles is Jacare just recently got a fight also in that division, didn't he?
Yeah, Jacare is set to fight Robert Whitaker at UFC on Fox 24. Exciting fight.
Very exciting. We got a number of actually fights on that card. There's four fights announcements that I know of on that card. I think the main event's going to be Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson versus Wilson Hayes.
Also announced last night.
Yep. Also on that card, Tom DeQuisney, a big French prospect, makes his debut against Patrick Williams. The return of Jeremy Stevens versus Renato Carneiro is also on that card.
Sweet. Um, Also set for UFC on in Nashville. Ellenberger versus Mike Perry, as well as Barbarino versus Joe Proctor.
You got any predictions for those two fights?
Um, I will have to kind of go back and examine each guy's record and last couple of fights. But I know off the top of my head, Perry is coming off of a loss, I believe, and Ellenberger is coming off of a win.
I don't think so. I might be mistaken, but wasn't his last fight the one where he got his foot stuck in the fence?
Oh, you're right.
And then he beat Matt Brown before the.
Yeah, you're right. He fought Jorge Masvidal. His foot got caught in the fence, and yeah, yeah. That's what it was.
Cool, man.
As far as Barbarino and Joe Proctor, I don't have a prediction for that one yet.
Fair enough. I'm really excited about those fights that you just mentioned. Mike Perry, I want to see how he comes off of a loss. And Ellenberger is always exciting. I might be mistaken with this, but I believe he's back with Kings MMA, and it's good seeing. I know he's no longer with Edmund, which is thank goodness. But I think that's a good fight the matchmakers put together. I'm stumbling today. My gosh, Dema. And
No, it's all right. We have it's a lot of news. This is very news heavy MMA week, so we're just kind of we're trying to cover all the bases here.
yeah, and I struggled through last night's card, so I got a little bit sick. So working through that, but we're gonna get you guys this week's news. We're gonna get you the fights.
You and a lot of other fighters.
Yeah, apparently we were all getting food poisoning.
Shoot.
I heard it. I heard it was rampant in that area.
Yeah, very true.
Where's that? Las Vegas? Yeah, Las Vegas,
Um,
Nevada.
Another fight was announced kind of before we go into Bellator and some of those results. Um, we got Miles Jury return versus, let me read this, Mike Della Torre.
Yeah. Um,
This one is set for UFC 210.
and also we have John Dodson versus Eddie Wineland announced for UFC Fight Night 108. Regarding Miles Jury versus Mike Della Torre, I'm excited to see Mike Jury back. Or Miles, I called him Mike. Miles Jury, though, I mean, we remember him from Tough. He faced some good competitors, but if I'm not mistaken, did he lose to Charles Oliveira
I think you might be right.
when he finally got to the upper echelon? But he's a young guy, he's got a chance to hop back on the horse and get back into contention. And I think Mike Della Torre is a good opponent for him. Regarding John Dodson versus Eddie Wineland, wow.
That's a good fight. I'm excited about that.
That's an interesting fight, man. Eddie Wineland is a tactical striker, and Dodson is quick.
Dodson is
And
a
he's
wild man.
technical also. He's wild, but he's wild in a technical style.
Like in a controlled manner.
Yeah, he's got good head movement. He's protecting his face. But you're right. When he strikes with a reckless abandon.
So, good fights announced. A lot of them, too. Do you have anything else as
Uh,
far as fight announcements before we go into Bellator?
no, I think that's it. You said we were gonna go into Bellator, yeah.
Just real quick, let's. It was Marlos Conan fought Julia Budd, and that was a tough fight for Marlos Conan.
Yeah, it was. I watched that fight. It was 5 rounds, and Conan just didn't seem all the way there like she had been throughout her career. It came out after that she ended up retiring, but it's Julia Budd is a really strong gal, Dima, and Conan every round. I mean, she might have like a second of success where she punched her, and then shockingly she would grab her. And Bud is so much stronger that every time she clinched with her, Bud would take her down. And this happened in every single one of the 5 rounds until eventually she finished it with punches. For she was in the full mount for quite a while, and she finished it with TKO punches. A great performance by Julia Budd. Talks about maybe seeing her in the UFC. We had a couple. We'll just go over the main event fights real quick. Also on there was Fernando Gonzalez defeated Brandon Gertz. And what was did you have something to add about the other fight?
Um, Other than Marlis Kunin had us off to her. She had a tremendous career, fought the who's who of women's mixed martial arts in her time. Things didn't go her way, but um, you know,
True pioneer,
true
Demo.
pioneer and legend in the sport.
I agree. She's fought everybody, like all the big names. She's been in there with Cyborg, Misha Tate.
Didn't she fight Cyborg twice?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean nobody was, in times when nobody wants to fight Cyborg, this is the one person that was willing to go and do it twice.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much if you look at her record, she's fought just about everybody, and it's really impressive. Also on that card, Fernando Gonzalez beat Brandon Gertz. It looked like Gertz was winning with his wrestling, but a theme that we've kind of been talking about before in other episodes was that they're not awarding wrestling as much. So like one of the judges actually had it 30-26. Like I scored the first 2 rounds for Gertz,
Hmm.
and one of the judges had it 30-26. So in my eyes, like he already knew who he wanted as the winner before the fight even started. And great guy Justin Wren came back. The big pygmy got a quick submission. He looked great, man. He hit one of those wrestling 5 point slams. You know what I'm talking about, Dima?
Yeah, he hit the slam and then eventually worked his way towards a head and arm choke, and just really sunk it in there. Went for it. Didn't loosen the grip at any point, and just kind of got into technical submission victory here.
Yeah, man, gotta feel great for a guy like that. I mean, he devotes all of his time. He devotes his career. Well, not all of his time because he still trains a little bit, but all his free time, he's devoting to helping people, the Pygmy tribe, down there. He's living with them. He's bringing them water. He's just an overall great guy.
Yeah, outside the cage, the guy's a saint. So knowing that, you can't help but to cheer every time you see him compete. So great performance for Justin Wren. Moving on to the next fight, Rafael Lovato with a win over Charles Hackman.
Yeah, United States Jiu Jitsu ace Rafael Lovato Jr., one of the only guys to win it as an American. He just bum rushed Mr. Hackman. He kicked him. He started kneeing him, and the fight was over real quick after that. And that, I wasn't overly impressed with the Bellator card, but it was just happy seeing Justin Wren get some in cage success. That was probably the best part of Bellator for me. Bellator 174.
Yeah, I would agree.
Cool. What a card we had last night. UFC 209, Woodley versus Thompson 2. You want to talk about it a little bit, Dima?
I mean, aside from obvious disappointing news of Habib Nurmagomedov pulling out and unable to make the fight against Tony Ferguson, this fight, lived up to the expectation and then some. The preliminary fights were very exciting. Some really, really, really epic come from behind victories there, as well as, pretty exciting main event as well. Main card, not main event. Main event was something else.
Yeah, Dima, what a card did we have? I really like at first, I was like with you. I was really disappointed about the Khabib not being able to be there, him getting sick. But this card turned out to be a blast, man. We had so many like great comeback wins. We had everything on this card, man. We had guys performing with some crazy injuries. Let's get into it and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll go from prelims and up to the main card, and then kind of talk about some of the controversies and some of the fallout afterwards. So, starting with the fight pass in bantamweight division, Albert Morales defeats the Asian sensation split decision in a fireworks of a fight.
Yes, Sukumta is how his last name is pronounced, but his nickname is the Asian Sensation. He looked really good, man. It was one of those fights, Dima, where both guys come out looking good, man. And Morales was really like he's really good when he has back control, and that's kind of how he won this fight. First round, I scored for Morales. Second round was pretty clear, Sukumta. And third round, man, the Asian Sensation comes. I've never seen a guy even attempt this in the UFC. He threw maybe 30 straight body shots. Then he started throwing knees to the body, and like he was just leaving his head exposed. Like he just went complete body attack. I think he realized he hurt him to the body, and Morales got pissed and was like, he took him down, and like that kind of won him the round. But if he kept getting hit to the body, man, he would have been messed up.
Like, have you ever played a video game where you just button mash? That's kind of what it looked like, where he hit him with like 30 body shots, like you said, and he just kind of went crazy there. But exciting fight, really. One of those where both guys don't lose a lot of stock, win or lose.
Yeah, great fight. Next fight on the card, former King of the Cage son, or excuse me, the founder's son, Tyson Pedro came back. His second fight after beating Khalil Roundtree, beats the Bear Jew Paul Craig with elbows, 4 minutes and 10 minutes in a round. 4 minutes, I said 4 minutes and 10 minutes. 4 minutes and 10 seconds into the first round. It was an impressive performance. What do you think about it?
I mean, Tyson Pedro just really outclasses Paul Craig here in his stand up. Paul Craig has kind of been really one dimensional in the way he fights, but also dominant. He was, mostly grappling guys down. We saw his weaknesses get exposed here, where Pedro capitalized in the openings in his stand-up game. He landed some really good clean straights and really rocked the Bear Jew there.
D, but this was the sixth crucifix finish in UFC history. You remember any other ones? I remember Gary Goodrich. That's really about it. What didn't Cain Velasquez have one? I believe.
I remember Roy doing it a lot.
Big Roy, but that was on the Ultimate Fighter. So does that count? He had like three like that, I think, on the tough.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think they still might have been amateur fights, but man, Pedro's good, man. Like one thing I didn't know about him that they talked about in the broadcast, I thought was cool. His dad, who we talked about, the founder of promotion himself. He's been around MMA his whole life, and he's been training for a long time. And his dad actually held him out for 5 years because he didn't think he was quite up to that level. And now he's started, and he's a beast, man. And he's got a 5-0 record, but he's more like a guy with like 11 or 12 fights.
Mm. So definitely he shows some promise. An exciting outcome there.
Yeah, and another talking point I wanted to go over with you, Dima. One, I bet on Pedro in this one, and my main reasoning was like, yeah, Berju was impressive in his first fight against, I wouldn't say very great competition, but the thing that really bugged me about, like, I listen to these guys' press conferences and stuff. I listen to how they approach fights, and he was one of those guys, and I haven't heard this since the early 2000s. He's like, he made it sound like it's stupid to watch video of your opponents, and like he kind of made it like sound like like he's better off just fighting his own fight when like research and just about everything shows that he's wrong.
Yeah, man, I agree. Knowledge is power. If you know what to look for, tendencies, it can really go a long way and help.
Yeah, I mean, ask Dominic Cruz how important footage is of fighters. I mean, it's really important to watch footage. And when he told me that, I knew that regardless of how much training he's got, which he said he's only been training for maybe 6 years or so, he's not gonna have a great game plan for the different styles in the UFC. When you reach that level, you need to watch the footage of your opponent, in my opinion.
Agreed. So let's move right along into Fox Sports 1 preliminary card. In a heavyweight bout, Mark Godbeer defeats a last minute replacement Daniel Spitz in a unanimous decision.
Yeah, I don't want to be disrespectful, Dema, but this is a bit of a sloppy fight.
Yeah, not the most technical fights. There, guys kind of got tired there in the end. Um,
I I was impressed with Godbeer's kickboxing. That's kind of what they touted in Bellator and when he first came to the UFC. Um, I was not overly impressed with Spitz. I'm not sure who he's going to beat at that heavyweight division. He doesn't really look like a contender there.
he didn't have, from what I hear, he didn't have a full fighting camp, so there's something to think about there.
Oh, he was short notice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I watched him against Cabbage, and it looks like he's the same style fighter. So
Cabbage.
with his skill set, I still see him having a very, very hard time unless he goes and maybe picks up some wins in a different promotion.
Well, not much to talk about here. Mark Godbeer kind of outlands, gets the better of the stand up here, lands more cleaner shots.
Dima, these next two fights, man, weren't they something?
Damn, I mean, if you're a fan of MMA, this is the kind of shit you watch the sport for.
Yeah, I mean, both fights, I bet on the underdog, or not the underdog, excuse me, the guy that ended up losing in spectacular fashion. Let's go over the first one. Yuri Alcantara picks up a submission knee bar against Luke Sanders, 2 minutes and or no 3 minutes and 13 seconds into the second round, and Luke Sanders looked great for 2 rounds. It might have been 2:10-8, Steamer.
I mean, Luke came out and put a whooping on Yuri, and he was punching the hell out of him for pretty much majority of the first round. Second round, both guys get in a scramble on the ground, and Yuri starts going for his leg there, and the tap comes so fast. It was, I kind of started laughing there because um, the outcome was so uh, unexpected.
Yeah, man, Luke Sanders like reconstructed Alcantara's face in the first round. He hit it, broke his jaw. You could see his jaw kind of like off to the side. Hit him over and over in the face. And to Alcantara's credit, man, that's one tough son of a gun. He waited for his opportunity. He was getting beat up again in the second round. He got taken down. He was getting beat up, and Alcantara, like you said, grabbed a knee bar. And it was just a real intelligent, in my opinion, tap by Sanders. At first, I was kind of like, "Oh man, he didn't even try to fight it." But then I thought about the implications of that knee bar.
Yeah, going back into the replay, he had a deep, and because he was upside down, it was a harder angle to get out of from, considering he kind of had the weight on the leg and everything.
Yeah, nice knee bar submission for Alcantara. Exciting to see both of these guys fight next time. Glad Sanders, excuse me. I was thinking about Ben Saunders. Luke Sanders is still going to be good to fight. And if his knee would have got broken there, he probably would have been out a year. So he'll probably get another fight. He was real exciting in maybe 4 months or so. And he's the kind of guy UFC likes to keep around because he brings exciting fights. And Alcantara always a warrior.
Yeah, man. Next fight in featherweight division, Derek Elkins defeats Mirsad Bektik.
Who the hell is Derek Elkins? Not to mess with you.
Darren, did I say Derek?
Yeah, you're like Chael, man, messing up names.
Oh, happens to the best of us, brother.
That's my
Darren
guy
Elkins,
though,
Darren
Chael.
Elkins. Over Mirsad Bektik, man, what an upset. You want to talk about it first?
Yeah, it was right after the Alcantara Sanders, where you're like, oh, I can't believe I just saw that, man. What just happened? this was even crazier, man. Bektic looked like that prospect that everybody was telling you about for 3.5 rounds, or excuse me, yeah, 3.5. And then Darren
Two
Elkins.
and a half.
No, it was two, and then half of the third. So, oh yeah, my math is wrong. Maybe I didn't need to take that hit before we
Woo!
started.
Darren Elkins, Mirsad Bektik. Shoot. Mirsad beats the hell out of Darren for about 2.5 rounds, like you said, and then something amazing happens.
Yeah, he grapples with him. Oh, he tried to take a second.
No, that was a complete that was a pass to you, my friend.
Oh, okay, yeah. He finished it finally with a kick, but Dema he like clinches up from behind him and hits him with like a sneaky uppercut through his guard underneath, kind of like both of them, and hits him with another punch, and then lands a huge kick, which the referee Chris Tugnini. Italian referee, I think. But anyways, he had to come in and save Bektic, who'd been dominating the fight.
So Mirsad Bektic takes Darren Elkins down repeatedly for 2.5 rounds and just gives him punches, hammer fists, elbows to the head. You know, in the very first round, I think he opens up several cuts on Darren Elkins's face, and Darren is just wearing a mask of blood for the duration of the fight from the first round. Going forward in the third round, like you said, they're going in these exchanges where from backside control to backside control, lots of blood, both guys kind of slippery, and Darren slips out and starts landing these punches. And this is where the amazing comeback happens. He, like you said, he catches them through the guard where Mirsad Bektic is trying to get away from back control, and he lands several punches with his right hand and just closes the show with that high kick to the head. What an impressive come from behind victory. Mirsad Bektic was in all sorts of trouble. He just got slumped there.
Wow, what a fun fight! Bektic kind of mirrored a lot of Khabib's skills. I know you don't probably want to hear that name, but anyways, you remember in the first round he did kind of use Khabib's patented where he grabs the hand behind the
Yeah,
back.
the wrist control, and then from backside control, he it's a wrestling control position. He's able to land just ground and pound repeatedly.
Beautiful work by Bektic, and I mean he was really kind of owning the wrestling aspect against a really good wrestler in Darren Elkins and looking like that 700 favorite. But man, this was the moment of the card.
It's like Khabib wasn't there physically, but he was there in spirit. We there was another fight where we saw lots of ground and pound from that backside control type of position.
Which fight are you talking about? I'm
I
trying.
think that might be the one before that, where Alcantara was being hit from that backside control.
You're right. Sanders used the same technique, and it was devastating. Both guys, a lot of guys on this card. You're right, Dima. A lot of guys on this card used that technique, and the great devastation, I guess you would say, or the great effect.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's it's like they watch tape of Habib.
Anything else on that fight, Dima?
I mean, that one was awesome. I could talk about that one for like 10 more minutes, but for the sake of time, let's wrap it up for the prelim cards. Uh, Marcin Tybura defeats Luis Henrique in a heavyweight bout in a third round by punches TKO.
Kind of slow fight, but I think you would agree with me. Tabura's an impressive heavyweight. Besides, like Henrique's a really tough guy that's always trying to wrestle you, always wants to get you down, get that top control. And Tabura was a tough fight. He looked in much better shape physically. He no longer has like a gut on him, and he's starting to look like a real heavyweight prospect. And he's always had really good striking. That's what he was known for when he came to the UFC. He was a big striking prospect, but now he seems to be moving around more fluid and just that's two knockout wins in a row.
I Personally, don't remember this fight very well. I might have been busy doing something. But this was an exciting finish. I don't have much to add about this.
It was a little bit of a slow fight, but the knockout was nice, and Tabora had a good performance. He's moving on up in the ranks.
The knockout came late, and it was a cool fight from what I remember.
And it was kind of ironic, man. Herb Dean was the ref of this one, and the ongoing joke is there. It might not even be a joke because there's a lot of truth to it. If he was the ref for either of the last two fights, man, he would have stopped those, and the winners would have lost.
Yeah, they could have been stopped in the first round. There was a couple of moments there where neither of the guy was, really defending themselves, but they overcame and persevered ultimately. Moving into the main card, another heavyweight fight. They opened up with Alistar Overeem versus Mark Hunt. Man, what a fight!
Two great warriors, like two of the all-time greatest warriors in MMA, and they had to they both faced adversity during and before the fight for Alistair. Alistair was a little bit sick. Hunt broke his tibia in the first round, and like the crazy warrior he is, he just kicked with it.
Yeah, he kept walking forward and kicking with the same foot.
Yeah, and then they showed a picture of it after the fight. Man, it was nasty. But what a great fight they brought. This was a lot different than their 2008 matchup.
Yeah, man. I mean, both guys came out there and were not gun shy.
Yeah, I gotta rub it in your face a little bit. I was calling Uber knee all week, and and you were like, I know you're a Mark Hunt guy, and it was probably tough to see, but what a knockout it was, man, and striking more fear in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, Alistar looked really, really good, despite some of the rumors circling around him being sick coming into this fight. Both guys exchanged. Both guys had moments in the fight where they were in trouble, and I think the winning factor for Alistar Overeem here was really being able to put Mark Hunt against the cage and use his clinch. He was able to spin him around and put his back against the cage several times in the fight, and he was able to land the high knee, the knee that he's known for, the Uber knee.
Demo, since this is the fight we were most excited for, I believe you would agree. Since the Khabib fight was missing, this is the one that we were looking forward to on this
Yeah,
card.
man, both guys veterans, come from that Pride era that we kind of reminisce about with good memories and whatnot.
Agreed, but let's break this one down. Let's break it down how it was in the fight. Like I'll go first. For me, Alistair, he came out in the first round, and in the first round he was having a little bit more success because he was throwing more. Hunt seemed cautious at first, but then Hunt landed a couple combinations there at the end of the first round, and in the second round he was Hunt that is, he was landing really nice. Like when they would get in close and they grab each other's hands, he would land these short elbows, and one really stung Alistair. But like you said, man, they were stunning each other back and forth. I think you did give us an analysis, but I haven't quite given one. They were kind of stunning each other back and forth, and at one point you could have thought anybody was gonna win that match. And for me, I was happy it was Alistair, but at the same time, I gotta admit I was a little worried for him, man. I thought he might have went down at any time.
Yeah, man. Alistar is one of those guys I kind of like to root against, but I have to give him credit. He fought a very smart fight. Got out of trouble when he was getting hit with combinations from Mark Hunt. Fought an intelligent fight and was really able to kind of utilize his strengths in this bout. So my analysis of it, Mark Hunt came out in the very beginning. He opened up the fight by throwing, being leg kick heavy, and during one of those leg kick exchanges, Um, he hit Alistar right on the knee with his shin, which was what caused the fraction. And like the beast he is, he kept plodding forward, throwing kicks with the same foot that he injured, and kind of controlled the pace there. Then Overeem started counter striking effectively, and he got him in trouble.
What a great one. It was like two of the best strikers to ever do it at heavyweight, I feel. And Overeem was working the knee really nice, man. And the thing I gotta give Hunt, that's a tough son of a gun. Like you said, he broke his tibia. He got kneed in the head. I lost track how many times. And he just keeps coming, man. This guy, and like eventually the knees put him out. And the same, he hit him with the same knee he hit Fajita with years ago in Pride that put him in a coma for a couple of weeks. And Hunt got up in 5 minutes and went to the hospital and got his, tibia worked on.
That dude's got a thick skull, man. I mean, his chin is unquestionable. But you gotta ask yourself, at what point does taking all that damage start affecting guy even like Mark Hunt?
Yeah, and just the fact he's kind of in a tricky spot now in the UFC because, well, yeah, obviously he's still got the lawsuit that we've talked about in a couple of our episodes, but beyond that, like he's probably out of contention now for a title anytime in his future.
Yeah, it's hard to say where he goes. Other than we'll see how this ongoing lawsuit plays out.
Yeah, what do you think of him just doing like fun fights, or do you think at this point he should maybe hang him up?
It's up to him. It's really hard to say or when somebody should stop. It's a really, really personal decision. Um,
That's true, and we don't know his bank account, so we don't know if he needs this or if he's doing this as a hobby. We don't know really. I'm hoping that he made pretty good money over the years. He's made an event a couple of these cards now and done all right. I think I would hope.
Me personally, I'm a fan. I would like to see him fight. Where do you think Alistar goes from here?
That's a good question, Demo. I know they asked him that at the press conference, and he obviously, I think he has a rooting favorite in the title fight with Stipe and JDS because he's got the history of beating JDS recently. So if he's hoping JDS wins so he can maybe push for another title shot. But he also brought up Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis as possibilities.
Yeah, that's very true. However, Francis, I believe, is booked, so Derek Lewis would be more likely out of the two, assuming he doesn't get a title fight of. But I don't necessarily think he's in a title contention per se.
Oh
I
man,
don't know. That was an impressive win. It just
maybe this is fanboyish, but I think he put Derek Lewis in the hospital. To be honest,
say what?
Alistair would put Derek Lewis in the hospital. I think.
Well, Derek Lewis has got a broken foot, like he said, so
Yeah, but
he might also be on a shelf.
there's that crazy possibility of him getting the Travis Brown. I mean, Overeem can lose to anybody in the division, but when he's on, he's on. Like you can see at the kind of the end of the first round to the second round, he started kind of feeling himself and looking like the Overeem that we remember in K1 and the one that I'm a huge fan of.
But to go back on you saying he's gonna decisively beat the Black Beast, nah, I think not, sir. And this might be fanboyism, kind of like against Overeem because he's one of those guys I like to root against. But the chin, man, he had some issues against Mark Hunt, and Derek Lewis, man, he brings the ruckus.
Hey, what issues are we speaking about? When he caught him with the short elbow and kind of stunned him a little bit? That was a hard elbow, though. That's a
The
hard
issue
shot to
of
take from Mark Hunt.
we all know Alistar kind of has a glass chin from his
Does he though?
portfolio of fights.
I don't know, man. His record is immaculate. He's won every belt besides the UFC belt.
Or
Like I said, maybe I'm a little bit fanboyish, but I think he holds a lot of advantages over Derek Lewis. Besides, obviously, chin and maybe punching power, but I think with all his techniques, I think that even the punching power is not. Lewis doesn't hold a huge advantage.
well, word on the street is he doesn't like to get hit. I'm going off of that, and it's kind of you can tell the way he fights. He fights very cautiously.
Yeah, I think it's tough to like make predictions on Overeem over the Stipe fight that happened prior to this one because Stipe is a monster. I mean, there's Stipe and Cain Velasquez, and not too many guys like him. JDS, I think JDS has beat him before, right?
No, Alistar beat JDS.
No, JDS has beat the champ Stipe Miocic.
Oh yeah, in a very 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 close fight in what you could say could have been also Stipe's fight.
Yeah. And besides one kind of fluky loss to Stefan Struve, he's just looked amazing in the UFC. And it's not surprised that his power was able to overwhelm Overeem, but you can't really compare Stipe to the Black Beast.
No, I mean he's a couple of levels above, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean the Black Beast comes at you with a pretty obvious game plan. And man, Overeem's fought some killers in striking department, but maybe he hasn't seen a ton of people with the kind of power that Derek Lewis presents.
I would be excited to see this fight.
Yeah, a lot of options for Overeem coming out of this one. Next fight, Dima, Cynthia Carvalho out of Team Alpha Male made her UFC debut against ABC Amanda Bobby Cooper. Lost pretty quickly there in a submission rear naked choke.
Man, that was a dope fight. Just the sequence where she took her back in like a very unorthodox way, and just secured the rear naked choke was hell of impressive showing.
Yeah, I was impressed. We talked about it during the fight. I remember she kind of did this transition. You're like, oh, that looks like a stretching technique. And eventually, that transition led to her winning the fight. And it looked like Cynthia Carvalho. I heard somewhere. I'm not sure how true this claim is. She's only been doing this MMA thing for 5, 6 years, but she looks like a heck of an athlete and like a natural to this.
Yeah, with a victory over Amanda Cooper, who has been fighting for a while. She's not a novice.
Oh, I thought you were elbowing me. This is black thing. What the hell?
What's that?
It was like elbowing
Pillow.
me. Yeah. Cut that out. Yeah, great fight, Dima, but a quick one. It was real impressive showing for Calvillo. Gonna be exciting to see how her scrappy style with really good. She's really solid on the ground. That's what she proved in this fight. She's moving around in there. She's That's the one thing I sometimes say when talk about a fight. She's moving around or he's moving around. That doesn't even make any sense. They're all moving around. But when
Some move around better than others.
yeah,
I get what you say though.
no. Where I was going with that is like when she's on the ground, she's scrappy and she's getting like from one position to another, and she's moving around her opponent rather quickly. Like she's really good at controlling the ground positions, and it helped her get the submission in this one.
An active fighter. Yeah.
And what a surprise in our next one. Judo Dan Kelly gets the win against Rashad Evans in a split decision and a fight that we were really excited watching over here, weren't we, Dima?
But that was a cool fight. Both guys kind of passed the hill. And coming in, this is a middleweight debut for Rashad Evans, and Dan Kelly is guy who's 5-1 in UFC and just gets by winning every fight just by kind of being scrappier than his opponent.
You know something funny, Dima? I shit you not. Maybe 4 out of his last 6 fights, I bet against him, and I'm like, it's Dan Kelly. He's gonna get beat up. Oh man, he's got no chance in this one. Every time I've counted him out, he's like a Cinderella story. And like I look at this fight, I'm like, oh, he's got no chance against Rashad. and he's a tough son of a bitch, man. He finds a way to win. He's tough as nails, and your thing, judo, it works in the UFC if you're high level like him. Silver medalist in the Olympics. He was tripping Rashad. Rashad's kind of like a cat. It didn't really, the trips didn't have too much effect. He couldn't get a lot of ground time off of it, but they were cool, man.
Yeah, man. Props to Dan Kelly. I mean, he goes out there and kind of really makes it his fight. Rashad did not look bad to his credit. He came in shape, but throughout the course of the fight, he did slow down a lot, and Dan Kelly kind of took advantage. Uh, Dan Kelly is one of those guys that is just really, really good at being able to stifle people's game. And he came in there. He was able to land the left hook repeatedly on Rashad as he closed the distance and got in the clinch range. And within the clinch range, between his dirty boxing and just weird things he would throw at him from judo perspective, like your leg trips and takedowns, he really shined.
All great points, Dima. And Rashad didn't look bad for himself either this fight. He looked to be in like great shape. He looked to be ready for this fight. He looked to be winning at some points in the fight. You couldn't like it was a split decision. It could have gone either way. I think Rashad looked great in that third round. If he fought like that the whole time, he probably would have won. He was able to get Daniel Kelly down to the ground a couple times, but to Daniel Kelly's credit, man, he's like Michael Bisping at getting right back up. Like you take him down, and he's got tricks there, man. He's got tricks to threaten you and get up. Is that a judo thing?
It's just grit, guts, heart, toughness thing, man.
Yeah, because I thought judo was more of like takedowns, understanding how to fall. I think Daniel Kelly, like we said earlier, he's just a tough son of a gun, man. He takes damage, he moves forward, and he's going to be in there to compete.
Judo primarily focuses on clinching from stand up and the takedowns, but there is a ground component to judo where submission, submission defense, and being able to properly defend yourself. It's there, although kind of like a minor or secondary discipline.
Yeah, and I bet if you've been riding Dan Kelly for the last 6 fights, man, you made really, really good bank betting because
No, I
he's
did.
been underdog.
Dude, I did not see the shit coming. And this fight, I went with him just kind of being a fanboy of judo. And also, he's been able to do the impossible against, opponents that were favorable over him, as well as I was really taking into consideration Rashad's long layoff. Ring rust plays a big component, in return for a lot of guys, and this is his first time in the division. He didn't fight for a long time, so there was that element. A lot of people are saying Rashad should hang it up. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, this was his return from a long time off, and first try in the middleweight division. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I heard the same thing, and I'm kind of with you on that, man. It looked to me like they held an elite, middleweight bout there. That was a good MMA bout. Like they looked like they could beat a lot of guys in the division, the both of them. And I don't. I mean, you don't want to see a guy take more damage, and if it's kind of like what we talked about with Hunt. If his goal is the championship belt at middleweight, then yeah, he should probably hang it up. But if he's looking for some fun fights and he's looking just to enjoy the sport, that's a different story.
Like with Hunt, if Rashad wants to hang it up, my head is off to him. He had an amazing career, a very long one, with a lot of highlights. But if he wants to keep going, I think he should do money fights.
One of my favorites, Sugar. He one of the best that implement the wrestling game, and he's definitely a Hall of Famer. Ready to go on to our next fight?
Yeah, man.
Okay. Highly touted Lando Venata lost to David Timur by unanimous decision. This was Demo. This was our the three biggest underdogs. The biggest, I believe, was Darren Elkins for Mirsad Bektic. The three biggest ones lost. I believe it was, oh yeah, Daniel Kelly, the one we were just talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. He was
Kel-
a big under.
Kelly beats Rashad Evans and Timur. Timur was the second biggest, and Kelly was plus 275, and Timur was plus 300. And he looked great. I mean, what this appeared to me like, Dima, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like a guy that had been training kickboxing his whole life. This is David Timur I'm talking about. How do you pronounce that? Timur?
I'm just gonna say Timor.
Okay, Timur. Versus Lando Venata, who admittingly has been doing, was a wrestler and admittedly, created his own style and been striking for 6 years. It was a heck of, I mean, this got the fight of the night from the UFC. It was a heck of a back and forth. But for me, man, you could tell the difference in experience in actual kickboxing, throwing technical shots and sharp, short shots. He was, what do you think about it?
I have to agree with you. Lando Venata was kind of more of a wilder uh, fighter there. He moved around a lot, didn't block a lot of punches, relied more on head movement and kind of footwork to get out of the way. And he was able to avoid a lot of shots, but also he ate a lot of shots because of that.
Yeah, good point, Dima. His style, with the hands down and jumping around, it's not good versus a real technical kickboxer like David. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and Timur looked more technically sound in his approach. He came forward, step forward, whereas Groovy was more circling in his approach, and I think he landed the cleaner of the shots, which was why he got the decision win.
Yeah, and Lando's fun to watch, man. He definitely landed some unorthodox stuff. You remember that like cartwheel kick he did?
Yeah, like a capoeira kick, and he threw a lot of spinning shit, as Diaz likes to say.
And even though he lost, I really like the kid. I mean, I bet my money on David. I won a good bit of money on him because I knew he'd be a tough underdog. I do. This fight was either 50-50 or David had a slight advantage. So I knew that the bet lines and people didn't really know much about him, and that was kind of a lot to this. But Lando, I want to see him again, man. I listened to him talk after the fight. He acknowledges, he thought he won the first round, lost the second and the third. Judges gave it 30-27 across the board for David. And Lando's like, regardless, I got a lot to work on, and I'm not happy with his performance. I like his mindset. I'm excited to see him again.
Yeah, man, me too. It's one of those outcomes where neither of the fighter lost a lot. Both of them won in a sense. I'm still excited to see Lando in his next fight, where he goes from here. Uh, Timur is, a prospect and a good competitor coming up here with a upset, and the UFC gained a prospect in that regard.
Yeah, we typically agree on everything, but one thing I kind of disagree on you with is you said that it raises both their stocks. It kind of does. It was the fight of the night, but it definitely raises one fighter way higher the division than the other. Like,
Yeah, for sure. The guy that got the win.
yeah, and Timur's gonna be up there now facing some real top echelon guys. While Lando, I think there's gonna get a chance to rebound against maybe another McDessie level opponent.
Reasonable enough. You want to go into the
Sure,
main event?
sure.
Tyron Woodley with a controversial decision win over Stephen Thompson.
Stephen Thompson. What? This fight wasn't all that. It was an okay fight. It was very technical. Both guys, you could tell, did not want to give the opportunity to lose. It was real boring up until around the third round, I would say.
Yeah, both guys very respectful of one another, potentially because of how recently they fought each other. So, a lot of inaction in the first round, lots of movement. They were feeling each other out. Not a lot happens in the first round. Not kind of the same story going into the second round. Thompson, to his credit, was able to land more kicks, from what I remember. Third round, a little bit more of same old, same old. Tyron Woodley gets a takedown here and lands some ground and pound, but Stephen Thompson gets back up, and that's pretty much it. Fourth round, a little bit more of the same. Do you? I don't remember fourth round as well or as
Yeah,
clearly.
I scored it for Thompson, but in the grand scheme of things, who cares? This was kind of a crappy fight. Like if he won, there would have been controversy. If Woodley won, there would have been controversy.
So okay, a little bit more of the same goes for fourth round. Fifth round. Now this is where the most amount of action happens. Uh, Tyron Woodley is able to get through to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and land some shots on him. He rocks him and gets pretty close to a potential stoppage.
Yeah, like this was a weird fight, man. Woodley really showed his abilities, but waited till 24 minutes and 30 seconds into the fight to do it.
I mean, it's like he paced himself to. It's like he was really banking all of his money on finishing this fight in the last round.
And if we're looking at this objectively, it kind of looks like they scored it like the old Pride style because even if you would have scored, 10-9 Wonder Boy first round, 10-9 Wonder Boy second round, 10-9 third round Woodley, 10-9 fourth round was Wonder Boy, and 10-8 Woodley, that would still equal a draw.
Now, I don't have an issue per se in this fight being judged like a pride fight because, I mean, there's just so much in action, and it's a hard one. I personally don't think a boxing way of judging is the best for MMA, and this fight kind of goes to prove that or to show that.
Yeah, we kind of had this discussion, and it's been talked about for years. What is the best style of judging? I think they're getting better with like the new rules and like the more judicious 10-8s. I think it kind of makes it more of a fight. It does make it more of the pride scoring. The way Pride used to do it though, they had the first round was I believe 10 minutes, second round was five, and it was judged as one fight.
Yep.
As one fight. And if you judge that last night's, or yeah, it was last night. Excuse me. If you judge last night's fights, it was last night for us. But if you judge that fight by like objectively and you judge it as a whole, it really didn't have a lot of action up until that fifth round where Woodley had him majorly hurt. John McCarthy was really thinking about stopping the fight, and it's one of those. I hate the saying, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to legitimately beat the champ to take it. I remember Carlos Condit beat Robbie Lawler more convincingly than I thought Wonder Boy beat Woodley.
Yeah, there was a lot of cases in MMA history. John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson is one that pops in my head right now for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to beat the champ to be the champ, and if you want to go and judge this fight round for round, a lot of people would have given this fight to Wonder Boy, and I actually agree with that. Now, I don't necessarily agree with MMA being judged in a boxing way, which is why I am not upset with the result.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely things to talk about, and we want to improve the sport, and this is something that should be talked about and made better.
Yeah, it's a little bit lengthy one, but I got a kind of a story about that. I might have told you about this. You can remind me afterwards. But I remember a couple years back, I want to say 5, 6 years back, I was real unhappy with the way MMA was being judged. So I decided, hey, I might want to take up judging, and I can't just bitch about it and not put my hand in it,
Right.
and try. So I've called up. I found out that you had to call believe it or not, you had to call up the boxing commission. So I called up the boxing commission. I was speaking to the lady. I said, "Hey, I want to, judge MMA fights."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, great. You got to do MMA and boxing." I said, "Oh, ma'am, I don't have any interest in boxing. I simply want to do MMA." And that's not true. I have been a fan of boxing, but I think that the way that it has to be, like they have to have MMA judging and boxing judging, because what's happening is they're sending these boxing heads that don't know anything really about our sport, and they're butchering these judges' decisions, and like for some fights that are pretty easy to judge in my eyes. And I was really disappointed. That phone call, Dema, left a real bad taste in my mouth because, I feel like, why do I have to do all this work and judge a sport that I'm not interested in, just to judge a sport that I do love and I understand well.
Well, it has to do with the fact that the sport is so young. We're pretty much coming out of infancy stages here. What do we have? 20 years at best. So, given that, they are using a structure of boxing which has been there for a lot longer as kind of a pre-existing base. So, I kind of think it's a little bit lazy, and as MMA is becoming more popular and more of a sport that stands on its own, we should make more of a distinction in those ruling committees for MMA specifically.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what you just said, um, one thing you didn't mention is it's all over the place because every state's got a different. There's not one universal code or way of doing things. It's state to state commissions,
And a
and
lot of states are more popular, have a bigger MMA scenes. Like a state like California, for example, would be more developed.
yeah. So my example of the North Carolina commission telling me I had to judge boxing, somebody like you said in Vegas might have a different experience and be able to go to John McCarthy School or whatever, and simply. I don't know. Maybe if one of you guys want to hit us with an answer on this one, it's a good question for this week. If you, can you just simply do MMA if you're a Las Vegas, judge or referee?
If I had to take a guess, now that it's become bigger there, you can probably go more of a stricter MMA route where they would give you opportunities to maybe do judging or refereeing on the amateur MMA scene.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're still gonna pull a lot of these judges that are like boxing guys over, and they're gonna be judging fights, and we're gonna be upset about a lot of decisions, and that's why that crappy phrase that I've heard actual fighters they hate this shit. They don't let it go to the
Don't let it
judges,
go to the judges.
because
Yeah.
fighters will tell me they're like, man, you're not in there. You're like that's some of the stupidest shit, but it's like Dana loves saying it, and in reality, I mean it's a stupid saying, but the judges get it wrong a lot, and that part of it's true.
That is true. As far as leaving it in the hands of the judges, I mean, hey, sometimes you get a case where guys get overzealous going for that finish and they make mistakes. I think Lando Venata, was a little bit overzealous going after a highlight reel knockout, and it may or may not have cost him a fight there.
So overall, UFC 209, Woodley versus Thompson 2 at the T-Mobile Arena. It was a good card overall. I enjoyed it. I was disappointed no Khabib, but I think the quality of the card made up for it.
Yeah, man, there was a lot of exciting fights, lots of finishes, lots of man, like two crazy upsets, and just some crazy back and forth brawls.
Yeah, two comeback of the year, probably two comeback of the year, like top finalists, probably. The other ones I could think of are maybe Holly Holm versus Misha Tate, and both of those were probably more impressive to me.
It's
Well,
2017 now, so
that is last year. Yeah, that won the award for last year. Anyways, regardless, two of the best comebacks you're ever gonna see.
yeah, man, it's gonna be hard to beat that.
Yeah, they're gonna try to beat it next week at UFC Fight Night 106, Belfort versus Gastelum in Brazil. Decent card we got coming up. A lot of Brazilians per usual. I think we have a Brazilian in every fight. We do have one cancellation already, so we're not going to talk about Max Griffin versus Sergio Moraes. Max Griffin had to pull out due to doctor's wishes.
Mm. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, we always fun to see Sergio Moraes and Max Griffin looked great in his first fight. Man, guy trains with Ben Henderson, so sad to hear, but go ahead. Get yourself better, Max. We look forward to seeing you. Same thing with Sergio. Two fighters you really like seeing in there. You want to start off the card, Dima?
So going to Brazil, this is a pretty stacked one. Even though not the most biggest names. We'll start with the UFC Fight Pass. Gareth McClellan is versus Paulo Henrique Costa.
Costa, he doesn't have a Wikipedia page, does he?
No.
Uh, I believe he's the Henrique Costa is the guy that's been losing. Like he lost to Bear Jew. I think that was his last fight,
Mm.
and he hasn't looked impressive. McClellan has had some UFC success. I think he's like 1-2. South African guy, and I know he beat Bubba Bush, who I think his muscles kind of held him back. He did get beat by Magnus, and he got beat by the guy that just recently lost to. Uh, we were just talking about him, a good guy on the ground. Been surprising people.
Alessio de Chirico.
Yeah, he lost to the guy that was recently on Tough and got the. Mm, I can't
Anyways,
remember.
not
Yeah,
not not as important.
yeah, not
Um,
very.
Next fight, Ronnie Yaya versus Joe Soto.
Soto always a tough guy, man. Anybody that's willing to fight Ronnie Yaya in my eyes is tough, because he's got some great jiu-jitsu, some of the best in that division. So that's an exciting fight.
Yeah, man, this being a Brazilian card, this is going to be lots of Brazilian jiu-jitsu heavy guys here. Next fight, Ronnie Jason versus Jeremy Kennedy.
I might be wrong on this, Deem. I believe Ronnie Jason. This is his first fight back off of suspension. And Jeremy Kennedy has had a win in the UFC. I believe he's 1-0. So I'm looking forward to seeing Ronnie Jason back in the UFC.
Yep, his comeback fight. Moving right along into the Fox Sports 1 portion of the card. A lightweight bout of Mikael Prazeres versus Josh Berkman.
Oh, the tractor's back versus Berkman. They like the way Berkman fights. They're keeping him around the UFC. I think he's had some mediocre success. I think might be at 500 at this run. He's had a couple runs in the UFC now. He's a true veteran, and but I don't know how he's going to handle the power and the overall game of Tractor. What do you think? He's a sneaky guy. He's got some submissions.
Josh Berkman has been fighting for a while. Let's see. He's coming off of two losses in 2016. Is looking to get back to winning ways. But Michael Prazeres, is poses some challenges for him. He's coming off of a 3-win streak last year. Most of them being decisions, but he's a tough guy.
Yeah, I mean he's beat Sumanov. He's beat some really good guys in the UFC. His record in the UFC is actually really impressive. He's got losses to Kevin Lee and Paulo Tiago, which Kevin Lee is no slouch, man. Kevin Lee is a heck of a fighter. I believe he's also on this card.
Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt. No surprise there. So, yeah, good bout to open up prelim cards with Fox Sports 1. Moving ahead, welterweight bout Sergio Moraes versus David Ramos. What can you
Hmm?
tell me?
No,
No,
no.
it's just
Sergio,
a different order.
no, that's not even on the card anymore. Sergio Moraes, remember he got switched to Max Griffith. Max Griffin said he's injured. Doctor said he can't fight, so that fight's just all the way off. There's no Sergio Moraes.
Okay.
Wait, Is that like that's Wikipedia, so it's updated. Who click his opponent? Where the
I
hell?
can't click his opponent. It just says he
What's his
was
What's his name?
replaced by promotional newcomer David
Oh,
Ramos.
that's in the thing right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of David Ramos. He used to be in Bellator. That's actually you're right, and I'm wrong this time, Dima.
Well, that's not me. It's the Wikipedia with
Yeah.
the facts.
Well, you see, I'm dying here, so I'm trying to use it less. But I that is a real guy, David Ramos. I believe he's undefeated or he's lost one, and I remember seeing him in Bellator. He's not bad. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. Should be a decent fight, but he can't be as good a jiu-jitsu guy as Sergio Moraes.
And Moraes is coming off of pretty much a 5 win streak, and he's got a draw in there as well. But yeah, man, he's looking hella impressive. Again, another black belt in jiu-jitsu with a lot of accolades and medals in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
He's really top notch when it comes to that aspect of fight.
This might be a good card to have a little bit of insight from our jiu-jitsu friend Farhad.
Yeah, man, I know. Yeah, it's a Brazilian card, so of course. But I'm impressed they got Marias another opponent that quick. I didn't think they'd be able to. But like, this Ramos guy took the fight on 1 week's notice against one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the game.
Tough, man, tough.
My hat's off to him, man. That takes a lot of balls. Next we got always exciting Godofredo Pepe, who has some of the most spectacular finishes in the UFC, versus Kyle Bochniak, who had that controversial win last time, a split decision. I don't remember his opponent's name. It was a Spanish fella, and it was a good back and forth fight. But this look seems to be a good fight. Uh, Damn, I lost the fight I was talking about, man. Oh,
Godofredo, another black belt in jiu-jitsu, coming off of several wins against likes of Andre Fili, Mike Della Torre, with his only recent loss being against guy we just talked about, Derek Elkins.
yeah, Godofredo is one of those guys. He usually receives the biggest ovation when he's in Brazil. Crowd loves the guy. He's a straight killer, man. He's got submissions. He's got like his striking is not that technical or good, but he throws. He comes out there to hurt people, man. And he's gonna be looking to finish Bochniak.
He threw a flying triangle in this Andre Fili fight. Do you remember that?
Yeah, the dude's nuts, man. He'll go for some crazy techniques, and I think like he catches a lot of guys off guard with the craziness of just the chances he takes in there.
Yeah, I like this fight. I like Pepe. Yeah, definitely a wild man and throw some crazy submissions up. Like his sub game is on point. You want to move right ahead?
Fun fighter, and I'm excited to see Kyle Bochniak back as well. I think it's a good matchup. Yeah, yeah, it's one of those fights where it's tough to pick a winner. Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Francisco Trinaldo versus Kevin Lee.
Ooh, Masaruba. You know what that means, Dima?
Somebody who likes to hurt people or
Yeah,
inflict pain or
pretty
damage, something like that.
pretty much.
Brazilians got some crazy ass nicknames.
Pretty much. And Kevin, the Motown phenom, he had a real impressive win. Wasn't one of those Dagestani guys last, Mustafayev?
I don't remember. Are you talking about Kevin Lee or
Yeah, his last victory was real. Yeah, Magomed
Magomed Mustayev? He comes.
Mustafayev, and yeah, man, that was a great fight, dude. It was like Magomed had a little bit of success, but that's a tough son of a gun, Magomed. And Kevin Lee was able to handle him and finish him. So this should be a good fight between two of the most up and coming prospects. People are a little bit upset because Trinaldo's got like a 7 fight win streak or something like that, 6 or 7 fights, and they think Trinaldo needs to get a top 5 guy. But I'm happy with this fight, man. A lot of people don't know Kevin Lee's potential, and I really see this as anybody's fight to win. In fact, I probably favor Kevin Lee a little bit.
Yeah, man. Trinaldo is coming off. He's riding a hell of a win streak. I mean, like he's 7-0 in his last 7 fights.
7, yeah. Last time he lost was to Chiesa, what, in
Like
2014 or something like that?
yeah, 3 years ago. So yeah, man, he's up there.
And anything else to add on that one, Dima, before we move on to Shogun?
That's like the prelim card main event. So both prospects, both.
That's on the that's on the main card, no?
To me, it's on
Oh,
the wiki.
okay.
It
That
says
the
it's like the
Wikipedia.
main fight of the prelim card,
Ooh, well,
and then
heck of a fight it is.
they're opening up with Alex Oliveira and Tim Means
Oh, I hope.
for the main card.
I don't really. I like the Sure Dogs order better, man. I hope they go with this and not that. But
So does the Share Dogs order have it the other way around? Alex Oliveira.
they don't have that Beth Correa versus Renal fight in the main card,
Oh, they like to put girls in the main card,
and like they don't have Alex Oliveira. Actually, Alex Oliveira, Tim Means, I believe, would be the curtain jerker. No, yeah, it would be.
which is what it is here. So,
Okay,
yeah.
and that was a good fight the first time.
So is this a rematch?
Yeah, they got no contest because remember Tim Means hit him with an illegal knee, which he was for some odd reason really pissed because he thought it was legal, but you could tell it was an illegal one. He had both hands on the ground, but it was one of those fights where they both like had success. Man, Oliveira like kicked Tim Means to the other side of the fence, and Means was having a lot of success at that point. Right before the fight was finished, he had Oliveira badly hurt, and
And
then
Oliveira was like, "Oh, I'm unable to continue after getting hit with that."
yeah, hit him with an illegal shot, and
Yeah,
they ruled it no contest, and they decided to redo it. And man, these guys match up well. It's a fun fight.
yeah, man. So, this one's gonna bring some closure, hopefully, from the last fight, which ended up a little in an unfortunate way. I kind of see it going the same way, to be honest.
Yeah, last week we started predictions, and as the boneheads we sometimes are, we predicted every fight but the main event.
Well, I was. I think you made it clear I was going to Tyron, but I never said I predicting him. So
Well,
we'll do a little bit better job this time.
yeah, let's tell them who we think is going to win this time. I think Tim Means is going to finish what he started. Oliveira had a little bit of success, but Means seemed to be the more experienced martial artist.
And I will agree with you in this one.
And I think that experience is going to come into fruition at some point. And I was surprised with Means' power against Oliveira's a strong, strong guy for that weight class. Means didn't seem to have issues with his power.
So unless something crazy happens and Alex Oliveira just comes looking for revenge and just does something crazy,
Well,
I see it going the same way more or less.
that's a tough guy with unorthodox strikes. He hurt Tim Means also in that fight a couple times before it ended. So it can go either way. I bet it's going to be pretty even money, to be honest. But I think we're both leaning towards Means.
Yeah. So good one to start the show off. Next one, women's bantamweight fight. The return of Betchy Carrera versus Marion Renaud.
Bitch.
Betchy.
Who got on the mic that time and kept calling her bitch? She's like, oh, that was
Rhonda?
Sarah McMahon. No,
No.
Sarah McMahon. I think she was like, oh, bitch was really tight. Or no, bitch.
She was tight.
no,
Damn, man.
she was really tough. I meant to say, damn.
She was checking her
we
out.
might have to cut that one out, but no, she was like bitch, but she kept saying it like bitch.
I'm not cutting it out. You're gonna have to learn to live with your mistakes, my friend.
Oh lordy, but no, Betch is, in my eyes, Dema. I don't know if you agree. She's tough, man, but at the same time, she's very unpolished in her striking. It's not a technical. It's really ugly to see, but like she's not she's like a really, really poor Randy Couture. She wants to exchange with you. She doesn't mind, pushing you up against the fence, doing a little bit of dirty boxing in there with you. She tries to use that kind of game plan, but man, her skills are not that impressive. And Renault has looked okay in the UFC. I think she got a big win last time. I forget Demo, but she's also had some losses and some struggles in the UFC. I think this was a good match, like skill wise.
I would say you're being a little bit overcritical of Betch Carrera, but it's kind of difficult considering Ronda Rousey was able to knock her out and show display some of her striking against her in that bout. With that said, Marion Reneau is coming off of a win against Malaya Dudaeva via
Hmm.
punches and elbows. So, she definitely has the advantage in the striking department here. If Betch comes out and is able to impose her grappling a lot better, this could be a challenge for Marion Reneau.
Mm. Marion's actually not a bad grappler, Dima. But Betch, it's not just I don't judge her off of that one performance with Rousey. I look at her whole body of work, and to be fair, man, she struggled with some girls that I'm not overly impressed with. She struggled with Jessica I, who I thought that she'd kind of be able to overpower. She's a strong girl, and like she'll probably have the strength advantage again in this fight. But Renau is a more polished striker, and I believe probably actually is the more experienced ground fighter in this fight as well.
You might be right. So I don't know
Predictions?
much. I don't know much about Marion Reneau. I do know a little bit more about Betch. I'll go ahead and listen to you on this one and probably say Reneau.
I'm gonna roll with Renau. I think she showed an ability to finish. Probably a lesser opponent. I think Betch is probably better than that Russian girl that she just beat. So it's really a pick 'em fight. But just not never been overly impressed with Betch's game. I've been impressed with her toughness. It takes a certain level of toughness to reach that stage. Where she's fought for the title. She's a tough gal, but at the same time, is she elite? I don't know. I think her cards fell kind of perfectly to get
Yeah,
that spot.
toughness is not a best attribute to say. Um, so we'll see how this fight plays out. Let's move right ahead. In the
Uh,
flight, you have some.
I don't think I gave my prediction. That's all.
Oh yeah, let's give our prediction. Well, I think we
You
did.
gave yours. I said I'm also. I believe we're both. So far, we're both rolling the same way. You're going Tim Means. I'm going Tim Means. Marion. So unlike last week, we're kind of agreeing so far.
And I did say I agree with you in my pick with Reneau. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
so
So we're both going that way.
fair enough. Next fight: Jessier Formiga versus Ray Borg in the flyweight division.
Formiga always tough, man. Really excited to see him back. And Ray Borg, didn't he look excellent in his last fight? He fought that the striker. His name is passing my mind right now. I have to probably look it up real quick.
So, Formiga, tough guy. Like he's 4-1 in his last fights. Only loss being from Henry Cejudo. And Ray Borg is same 4-1 in his last fight with his loss coming from Justin Scoggins. Now he did have a win over Louis Smolka in his last fight, which was do you remember that was an upset?
Yeah, I believe it was even money fight, but good point. I had that name had and I remembered he had lost to Scoggins, and then right after then he kind of regained some momentum by beating Louis Smolka, who's been kind of beatable lately, but Ray Borg dominated him. He had a positional control the whole time. It was a really good showing, but it's going to be hard to duplicate that versus Formiga.
Now, one thing to watch out for: Borg has missed weight in his last two out of three fights, so he needs to make that weight, man.
This is true, but he's a good fighter for that class. And what do you think of the matchup?
I think it's a good matchup. Both guys, like I said, 4-1 in their last five fights. Both riding, some good wins against good competition in the division. And 125ers is a division that we want to see more contenders come up. So, good matchup.
Yeah, two of the best grapplers in the division. They different styles of grappling. Ray Borg's a little bit more aggressive, positional switching, and Formiga is more of a basic jujitsu. Very strong suit is jujitsu, and they both won it on the ground. I would say two of the best grapplers in that whole division. I would give Formiga the advantage in the grappling department, though. He's a jujitsu ace.
Formiga comes from jiu-jitsu background. Is Borg more of a wrestler type?
Borg's wrestler, but he's got jujitsu abilities. He's got some good submissions. He's uh he's no slouch on the ground. You know what I mean? He's really good at like some of those wrestlers are really good at transitioning to the back while they're standing and getting takedowns like that. He's good for that division at getting the ground to the fight. And they both are pretty good at getting the takedowns for that division. And the main difference is Borg has fought some pretty good guys, but Formiga's fought pretty much everybody besides Mighty Mouse in that division. He's fought the best of the best. And he's been doing it for years.
Gotcha. Um, Man, these next three fights I'm pretty excited about. So Edson Barbosa is going to fight Daniel Dariush in the lightweight division.
Yeah, good fight. But before that, I think we skipped prediction again.
Oh,
For
I keep forgetting.
for Ray Borg Jussier. So look, I'm gonna go ahead and go with Formiga. I think his experience, and I think just being in there with tougher opponents. I know Ray looked unbeatable in his last fight, and I don't think he'll be able to duplicate it. But would I be shocked if he pulled the upset in this one? Absolutely not.
I'm gonna side against you here and go with Ray Borg to make it a little bit more interesting. I think this is a pretty even matchup here. So yeah, let's make it fun. I'll go Ray Borg.
So you're going with the youth and the promise.
Yeah, and he's a big guy, man. He has trouble coming in on weight. Um, so let's hope we don't have like a episode of Habib here.
Hmm I agree. And next fight, we have the kind of like Daniel Kelly from last card, typically underrated, underappreciated. Benyil Dariush from King's MMA versus Edson Barbosa.
Killer.
Barbosa's got some of the sweetest knockouts in UFC history. He's got that kick versus Terry Edom. He's got some good fights, and recently was his last fight that went over Anthony Pettis. Was that it?
I will pull it up right now. You are actually his most recent win is over Gilbert Melendez. Anthony Pettis is the fight before that.
Oh, I remember the Gilbert Melendez fight, and it was a good fight because Gilbert is highly regarded in that division. I mean, he is up there. When you beat Gilbert, you know you're a contender. So both of those wins mean a lot in that division. And Edson Barbosa, man, what a prospect! And this is Dariush's opportunity to, take one step further from that. A couple impressive victories he's had in a row following the loss to Chiesa. He's beat James Vick and he's beat Magomedov. So how does he rebound from those wins?
Um, Sorry, I just blinked out on your question. I was thinking about how this fight unrolls. Barbosa is a dangerous striker, man. His kicks are like just terrible to hear because you can actually hear the echo of the impact, throughout the arena. He lost. His only losses are against some of the division's top guys in like that of Michael Johnson and Tony Ferguson. So here's this decorated, dangerous striker coming in and fighting a Daniel Dariush, somewhat underrated fighter. Um, the only what are you laughing?
You just fuck people's names up all the time. Daniel Dariush.
How do you say
It's
Dariush?
Benyul.
Daniel.
That is a
Hey
weird
man.
name, to be
Hey
fair to
man.
you. To be fair. I wasn't going to cut you off. I just was giggling a little bit over to the side.
My bad. Benio Dariush. So, like I was saying, a bit underrated. He's got good string of wins against a guy that beat Barbosa. He has a win over Michael Johnson. However, I do see a pattern in his losses. He has two losses, one of them being against a Michael Chiesa, and the other one being against a Ramsey Nijam. Now, both of those guys are kind of wrestling, grappling heavy guys, so it might be something to look for there.
Yeah, and if you're gonna talk about the loss to Ramsey Nijam, he had a nice streak of wins right after that. Like one of the guys that's little known but a great jiu-jitsu player, Carlos Diego Ferreira, was on that list. Jim Miller and Michael Johnson, tough fighters. So he's beat some guys, and he's a King's MMA representative. He's been there. He's one of those guys that kind of started his career there, and he's been there the whole time. So they've put a lot of work in this guy, and he's beat top guys already. And the losses that he does have, like if he fought Ramsey today, he would annihilate Ramsey. It wouldn't even be a close fight. He got caught by a little bit of a lucky shot.
Yeah, agreed. I think he was fighting Ramsey when Ramsey was like at his best.
Even still, it was a shot. Like if I remember, it was just a shot he didn't see, like a knee, like when he was going for a takedown. And I mean, it was a hell of a shot by Ramsey, but a shot that would put a lot of guys out.
Yeah,
Uh,
man. MMA, anybody can get caught. He does have last win over Rashid Magomedov decision. So yeah, man, a bit of an underrated fighter. He has a lot of skills and abilities. What does he have to do to win this fight?
that's a good question. I was actually thinking about asking you the same thing, but I'll go ahead first. I think to win this fight, like Edson Barbosa is not just a good striker. He's one of the best strikers there is in the game. He's dynamic. He's gonna hurt you with his shots. And Dariush has to either like if he's in striking, he has to be really on his p's and q's. He needs to be aware of the counters coming back at him. But I think he needs to personally. I think he needs to make this an ugly fight. He's Dariush is a really experienced grappler, and he's really comfortable in the grappling and getting the fight exactly where he wants it to be. So I think if he can get it into a grappling phase, kind of like Ferguson did with Barbosa, he has a decent chance to win this fight. And if he's a 3-1 underdog type deal, I'm gonna put some money on him.
Yeah, man, good points. If Dariush is able to close the distance, not play on the outside, where Barbosa is most dynamic and dangerous, I think he can set up and get the upset here.
Yeah, good fight. Was that the co-main or was that third from the
That's
top?
third from the top.
Okay, yeah, good fight. My prediction would be hesitantly. I think I'm gonna go with Barbosa. I think he's good enough, and because he's a Brazilian guy and he trains with a top team, he's gonna have a good game plan and of staying away from that grappling and being able to use his strong suit, which is the kicks and the striking overall.
I am leaning towards Barbosa myself, a guy with, you know, an ace up his sleeve, and that his striking is world class, like you said. Uh, there might be some value in putting a few units on Daniel Dariush if you know
You called him Daniel.
Daniel. I call him Daniel again. Daniel,
It's
Benny.
a tough
I'm gonna
name.
just start calling him Benny.
Yeah, what's his nickname?
Benny.
Mm, there you go. Good fighters though. Exciting fight. Probably where it needs to be on the card actually.
Yes, because the co-main event we have Mauricio Rua versus Gian Vellante, recently cleared to fight.
Yeah, cleared the fight and getting his opportunity to beat a legend.
Yeah, man. Rua, veteran, absolute, savage. His fights going back to Days of Pride, where he has some fantastic knockouts over, like Rampage and Alistar Overeem. Um, yeah, man. I'm excited to see a Rua fight. He is kind of over the hill as far as career wise. So this is a really important step for Gian Vellante to push his career forward.
Yeah, Shogun's had success in his career. I mean, he's a true legend. He's had success for a very long time. And even in the UFC, he's managed to get that strap. He's one of the few guys from the Pride that moved over that was able to actually get a belt in the UFC. Had some great fights with Machida. Unfortunately, ran into the buzzsaw that is John Jones. The thing about this fight, and I've counted Shogun out in the past, and I kind of bit the dust for it. I remember he fought Tahuna a while back, and I was like, oh, Tahuna's probably got this one, and it did not end up like that. But I think Guillon's got the right amount of experience and the right amount of youth to really take this one from Shogun and make a name off of him.
Yeah, Shogun is coming off of two decision wins. One against Corey Anderson, the other one against Lil Nog. So
I disagreed with the Corey Anderson one. I thought Corey Anderson won that fight personally, and I thought Shogun's name got him the decision win.
yeah, dude. I mean, he fought him in Curitiba, Brazil. Isn't that his hometown?
Yeah, but the judging should be non-biased.
I agree with you, but not to say that it's not.
Those judges wanted to go home that night too, to their kids and to their bed.
No, I think they wanted to give Rua, his potential last Ura, because people at that
Mm.
time they thought he might have been he might be retiring. So I'm kind of surprised to see he's coming back and he's still fighting. But Gian Volante is he's coming from a bit of a up down kind of a record. He has a win over Sapar. Oh Jesus Christ, Safarov. He has a loss versus Ilir Latifi, a win against Anthony Parash, loss versus Tom Lawler. So kind of up and down. He has a win over Corey Anderson as well.
Do you remember his fight versus Paterbek Safarov?
Saparbek, that's how you say his name.
That's the crazy guy that would get hit in the face and come like forward throwing. He's the Russian fella that was just throwing a bunch of shots. It was a back and forth fight where Guillon finally got the knockout, but that dude was nuts, man.
Yeah, man, that was a fight of the night. That was some crazy shit.
If you missed that fight, go back and watch it. But I think that Guillon comes from a good camp there with the Cerro Longo team. And he's going to pose a lot of problems for Mauricio. If I had to make an early prediction, I'm leaning for the upset victory for the Guillaume Volante out of Serra-Longo team.
Gian is upset?
I would imagine he's the underdog in this fight.
We'll have to look at that and confirm it.
Both my phones are dead, but
it's all right. I just didn't think he would be an underdog. So I would probably lean towards him. He's a younger guy, fresher. Mauricio Rua, despite coming off of two decision wins, I think he's seen enough. He's took enough damage, enough punishment, and I think Gian might come in there and put his hands on Rua.
yeah, and it's important to note if this was like the prime Mauricio Rua that we saw in Pride coming in,
Oh yeah, he's a complete savage.
he,
I completely give him the fight.
he destroys you.
But this is a 40-some-year-old Rua after several epic battles. So that is the reason we're leaning towards Gian. Wouldn't you say?
This is a different fighter. He's. I think he looks more like he did it nowadays, like he did when he fought Forrest Griffin. Kind of the older Mauricio, but before, man, he was explosive. We were talking about Edson Barbosa being a scary striker. This guy had it all.
Yeah, I mean, Rua fought who's who and has had a decorated career. So I'm gonna be rooting for Rua, but if I was to make a prediction, I am leaning for Volante,
So far, we've predicted all the same. Right?
except for Borg and Formiga.
Okay. Yeah. I took Juicy. Yeah. And the last one, we got Kelvin Gastelum off that big win versus Tim Kennedy recently versus Vitor Belfort. Who I'm not sure who did he face most recent.
He fought Gegard Mousasi and got messed up.
So that puts him on a 2-fight skid, I believe, right? Because
Yeah,
before that, he got
he fought
owned by
Jacare,
Jacare, right?
and yeah, he His last win is over Dan Henderson, way back in 2015.
Yeah, and if we're being real with ourselves, Dima, he's nowadays he's in it for the money, and he's a killer be killed type fighter. He's not in there to fight 3 rounds anymore. He wants to get it over with quick or lose quick.
Yeah, completely agree. This is one of the longest active fighters. I think the guy has been fighting since 96 or 97 professionally. So, yeah, he's definitely in for the money. Will fight pretty much only in Brazil, which is something to think about considering his past controversies.
Yeah, and I might be biased because I'm not a big fan of the I fight for the Jesus fight for me. And like thinking like he's God's favorite in the ring and all this holier than thou. He does have a real interesting story. It's too long to talk about on this podcast, but I mean, with the passing of his sister and
Yeah,
just
lots of hardship. So he's been through some shit.
the rededication to the sport. I mean, he's a really interesting guy. Lifetime MMAer. Somebody that needs to be respected. Um, But I think Kelvin is a tough matchup for a lot of guys, and especially Vitor.
Yeah, man. Kevin is a tough matchup. Um, if I had to make a prediction, I would definitely lean towards him in this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I personally think his last opponent, Tim Kennedy, at this point in their careers, is a little bit tougher fight than Vitor Belfort is now. Excuse me. I really enjoyed Vitor early in his career. I mean, to be honest, you know this very well. I'm not a fan of Vitor Belfort, but he's a heck of a mixed martial artist. He was one of the first guys to have a diverse skill set. He was good in many things instead of just one art, and that made him stand out when he first came in and he was 19 years old and he got a championship. But I don't think he's the same fighter, and I think Kelvin's got a better gas tank. And if I had to make a prediction, I would also go with Kelvin.
Yeah, man, this might be a tough night for Brazil as far as this main event is concerned. But, they love them some Vitor, so, he's still fighting. But yeah, this card definitely has potential to be one of those exciting but low key cards where some crazy shit might go down. Brazilian fans are always yelling their asses off, and always a crazy atmosphere in Brazil.
Yeah, and you're always going to get good jiu-jitsu out of a Brazil card, Dima. And just like we're expecting a good show, we feel good about this episode, man. This was a good one.
We might be going a little bit long, but a lot of things to talk about. That's why.
Yeah, we sure did. We had a whole lot to talk about this week. Busy week in MMA. It's gonna kind of slow down a little bit this week. No Bellator card this week, just UFC. Uh, and it was a real exciting card. It kind of it brought you back to the old school, MMA, and just the coolest thing for me was seeing the two comebacks.
Yeah, man. Definitely, some contenders for comeback of their year, and you know, really good fights overall.
Yeah, and we had a war between Timur and Venata. That was just back and forth and great striking displayed. Overeem Hunt was a fun fight, and it was just a great card. But I guess I'll start us off a little bit, Dima. I just want to thank everybody for listening. We appreciate you guys coming back every week, hearing our predictions, joining us in talking MMA and talking about the fights that happened over the weekend.
As always, any feedback is appreciated. If you guys could answer any of the questions we have during the show or have any suggestions as far as helping us make the show better and helping us deliver a better product, always you can catch us SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and check out MMApodcast.com. It's a pretty neat website.
Well, thanks for shooting the ones with us again.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Dema and Genya, out.